the cloud. Okay, well, good afternoon. Hope everyone is doing well. And it's a pleasure to be here to present as part of our undergraduate Dean workshop series. So I'm excited to share some of the work around experiential learning. And today we're going to be particularly focused on internships in undergraduate students. And I have slides to share, but also we want to sort of also make this workshop style so we can pause and ask questions as we go. I have lots of information to share coming from primarily really from our colleagues in the District School of Arts and Sciences. It was really in itself very learning experience for me to see all the amazing work that many of our colleagues are doing in other departments as well. So I have a PowerPoint, so I'm gonna share the screen. I'm also using two screens so I can see the PowerPoint, but also be able to engage with you as well. Yeah. So I can do that here. Share. And you can see, right, but you can also see the notes. I don't have any notes, so I'm not, so, but I think if I narrow this, that should do the trick. Yes, and it did. Perfect. And you can make the screen bigger. Yeah, and you can see my screen as well. The slides, perfect.
Yes, the slides come through perfectly, yeah.
Perfect, yay. Okay, so this worked, yay. The only thing that's not working from my end is, okay, this is working. Great. So obviously, this is a very important topic for us to invest, think of ways, strategies, practices to prepare students beyond graduation. At some point, our students are going to graduate, and we know that. And at some point, they will be looking for jobs, and they will be asking questions, regarding what the future holds beyond their bachelor's degree. And I think it's a very important conversation. And sometimes we also prefer if that conversation happens a little bit early, for a number of reasons, of course. Earlier, because sometimes doing an internship, an experiential learning type, which we will broadly sort of navigate what that all entails, sometimes helps interns go back and say, I really appreciate this kind of industry. I want to take more classes on that. And so it's important that we engage, we go as early as possible. And encouraging students also doing more than one internship is not a bad idea, right? I've had interns that have done 2 internships over 2 terms. So I think that's very helpful. So as you all know, I'm new in this role. This is day number 34, I think. Started September 1st, 33 days into this, and I'm very excited to work with everyone. As we also know that experiential learning is not something new in knowledge and history and science. So as you know, Socrates and Plato emphasized dialogue and questioning as key learning tools. In the 19th century, John Dewey advanced this approach by arguing that education should be grounded in real life experience. And I think we see it from experience too. I mean, when we connect learning to things outside of the classroom, I see excitement on students' faces, like they want to hear more. So I think any opportunity to take course components to outside life and real life, I think students are sadly more interested. Then also by the late 20th century, David Cole formalized ideas into what is known today as experiential learning theory, right? So, and as we've had some meetings recently, and I've been saying also investments in undergraduate studies are preventative because they help prevent students from going to the wrong graduate school or the wrong industry. I mean, there is nothing. I mean, I think students can experience jobs. I mean, lots of people switch jobs, I think sometimes more than even 5 times in their lifetime or more. But I think it's, as I said at the beginning, it really helps, students guide them career-wise, but also if they choose to go to a graduate school, at least you have some idea of what do you want to do in that graduate school and what type of career or job they like to pursue. talking about reflection. When I stepped into this role about 34 days ago, I realized that while the responsibilities may have shifted for me, some things remained constant, like my life for Moroccan tea, which I have right here. First thing I do when I come to the office is make brew a Moroccan teapot. So, and then I drove my kids to school as well. So those are some of the same things that remain. So and even taught a class that day, which is something that they have always done, of course. So as we know, when talking about or facing new challenges or new things, it is comforting to know that some habits don't change. And I am still in the same city, same house, same parking spot. So that's obviously slightly different for somebody else who pursued the role in another city and had to move and so on and so forth. So this small reflection in itself highlights how grounding rituals help us make sense of change and adapt to new situations. And as I look back to that day, first day, when I sought a frame of reference for my own journey, as I was embracing this new role, I was reminded then and now how essential it is to create for students to have similar reflective work, to be able to, because some of them one day also are going to be in this role and they're going to shift jobs, and sometimes not just jobs, but change careers completely. I mean, that's not the case for me. But those things are important for us to embed in our conversations with our students. I am planning lots of meetings with faculty from different disciplines where we're going to steep and pour tea and explore together possibilities and opportunities in the area of experiential learning. I want to put this slide here to showcase the importance of why internships are important. This is data that comes from the National Association of Colleges and Employers. One is that 80% of employers say internships provide the best return on investment for recruiting compared to other recruitment strategies or modalities. Employers, as we would do in some situations, prioritize people with internship experience. If you look at a resume, bachelor's degree, 4.0, great. Well, I like to see some experience. For me, when I first came to the United States, first year, people were asking me if I had US-based experience. I'm like, somebody has to give me an experience. I have a lot of experience working in Morocco. So I think so people are looking at our CVs, resumes for some kind of employment history. Interns, from personal experience, we have seen interns who did internships with lots of our partners and they stayed there. In one of the local companies in Pittsburgh, we have more than 15 interns. They are working there full time. So this is good. And I think, and for me, the number, I'm surprised the number is not even higher, the percentage. So, and maybe there might be situations where interns perhaps chose to move on to other places, but that opportunity of landing a full-time job is there. Onboarding is easier, of course, because they know the place and they have prior experience, what that means, what that entails. Just like onboarding for me a few years ago was also very easy as well. So, and the other thing also is that retention, which is, as we have seen recently, that revolving door in the job market where people are just moving around. I think that's also important to note. Also important to note is that 3.6, this information comes from SPADA Foundation research. They have done some research around colleges in the United States. 3.6 students complete internships, 4.6 wanted internships but couldn't find them. So as much as we are promoting this day, we have to keep this reality in mind. If all our students raise their hand today, I want an internship, it's not possible. But it is possible if we are not just waiting for employers to post internships. I think we also have that ability to co-create and create. I mean, more than 90% of the internships partners, I work with personally with 27 partners, and most of them, those were opportunities we have that I brought up to their attention. We had meetings and we talked about projects. So it does, sort of entail some work from our end, because sometimes employers don't know what our disciplines entail. I mean, take, for example, just linguistics. Most people say, I say I'm a linguist, and the next question is, how many languages do you speak? Or what does history entail? What does sociology entail? What are some of the applications of political science? How could somebody in biology think? Yesterday, we had a wonderful meeting, and Dr. Erika Haston from the Department of Chemistry, brought up some examples about what students could possibly do, like going to cosmetic industry to improve beauty and skincare and so forth. So we have to think again because we have an intimate knowledge of our disciplines. So some of that work really should be initiated by us in terms of what kind of opportunities. So when talking to companies, sometimes they're willing, Soudi, we're willing to work with you, but what could possibly students do? And then that's a very good exercise for me. That becomes my homework to think about some of the applications. And I don't mind that type of homework too, because I want to know the full potential of what I am trained on as well. So my role is here really to help create those opportunities. So when all students raise their hand, we have things for them, whether it's internship, service learning, community-based project. And this is why, this experiential learning is broad. So we are able, through that diversity of projects, we're able to satisfy some of those needs and explore modalities inside and outside the classroom too. And I will talk a little bit more about that in terms of what kind of things we can do as well at the syllabus level. And then increase projects and work with create a platform to engage and network with our alum. In our school, we have more than 90,000 alum. That's a lot. If you are able to even engage meaningfully, 15% of that's almost 15,000 industry partners. And so I think there is a potential and there is opportunity, but also this will be possible if we are able to all gather and connect through what's called community of practice, right? An experiential learning community of practice within our school. We represent different disciplines, different skills. We have diverse access to resources. And I think bringing all of that together can be very helpful. Sometimes students in a major do want another opportunity that really has to do more with another department. And why not create that bridge for students? And we want students to work across disciplines. That's important because eventually, as employees, as grown up, they are going to be working in companies with engineers, with HR, with different with professionals that they have not had a chance to experience at the level of the classroom as well. So this conversation today, I have been doing an internship program for many years, but this conversation particularly, it's more importantly, it is inspired by the amazing examples that were shared by our colleagues from different departments. Not all colleagues submitted, so it doesn't mean some departments that do not have it, just we did give a tight deadline, September 20th, for people to share, but we will reach out again. And obviously that's the idea of creating opportunities to connect with faculty in different disciplines, is to really learn about what they are doing, and I'll obviously bring in some of my experience. And I would love to hear also your own experience as well, wherever you are. I shared this recently with lots of colleagues. In 2019, we actually brought the National Academies of Science to PIT because they produced an amazing report, National Consensus Report, about the integration of the humanities and arts with science, engineering, and medicine, and vice versa too, because that integration is only possible if it's cyclical and iterative. So it's important to keep that in mind, integrating both ways and going around. And that's important also for students. David Scotten, who served then as the 13th Secretary of the Smithsonian, was chaired this report. And Dr. Ashley and Dr. Maya Dahlberg came to and Dr. David Scotten also gave a keynote, sort of highlighting the importance of working across discipline and cross-disciplinary training. And David Scotten is a musician and a physician. He's a cardiologist. That's a very, very nice combination. But you could see the numbers there. It's kind of worrisome also in terms of the findings of how only half of the students believe that their degree would lead to a good job after graduation. So I think there is work ahead of us to do. So what is experiential learning? It's very broad, but also exciting. It essentially connecting learning through direct applications, grounds education in real life, and engages students in real life experiences, whether it's through community service, community-based project, through service learning, through internships themselves, through externships, through shadowing, through lots of ways in which we can do that. But three important concepts is the action in terms of hands-on engagement, the examples that I just mentioned, creating those experiences that allow students to take that learning and apply it. Most importantly, also, experiential learning would not exist, does not exist, should not exist without the element of reflection. That's very important that students engage in some form of journaling, self-assessment, peer learning, meeting with other interns to learn from other experiences. And I think there is value for us to think as we plan and working together to create some seminars, bringing our interns together. I did that once with the English department where our interns gathered with their interns. And that sort of really even expanded because while our interns were doing specific industries, English departments were doing other industries, and then they got together and some of their students expressed an interest in the type of stuff that our interns were doing. I think and doing that with biology, with chemistry, with physics, with other, would be even super amazing to help our students learn about. So let's think about how we can make that happen. I'm excited about that opportunity, and I'm sure Andrew can help us make that happen as well in terms of logistically, and because I think it's going to be a very valuable, but also helps with as we think about capacity as well in terms of and bringing, which also would make Adriana happy in terms of bringing, seminars coming together, classrooms coming together for us to, if we are, for example, investing in a particular activity, it would be very nice for us to all come together. So there is a bigger benefit and a bigger impact that touches students across departments. And then the application that will vary. If a student is close to graduation, that will translate into something like career-wise. If it's early in their education, then they're going to think about classes. I mean, students come to our office like, what I'm thinking about classes. And obviously, my style is I do soft advising. I don't campaign. I advise. Is that I think it is, and I don't. Also, I don't campaign in the classroom. I teach. I like to present students with opportunities, and then let them choose. I have made my own choices, but I think they should make their own choice. But this should be an informed choice. And that's where we come in by presenting those options for our students. So again, that application level of will vary based on at what point the students are engaging with those experiences. This is an example. There is a chapter in here. I'm not sort of promoting because I quoted this, but there's a very important chapter there that really helped me learn about some of the gaps in our education. I was working with graduate level people who have advanced terminal degrees, and we designed an exercise with my colleagues in the Department of Family Medicine, where we ask people to think of a cross-cultural or an encounter with another person, and to then define the problem and how they dealt with the problem and what they learned from that problem and how would they teach it to others. This is a very good exercise for our interns, for all our students, to think about something, what happened, define it, what did you learn from it, and how would you teach it how did you solve it, and what did you learn from it, and then how would you teach it to others. I can share with you that sometimes these trainees had a hard time thinking of examples. These are the people who saw a lot of people every week. And occasionally they will have a hard time finding a concrete example. Last year, I organized with Dr. Mortazashvili lots of workshops around compassion. And I designed some simple questions about, have you ever received compassion? Every one of us has received compassion, but it's very hard sometimes for us to think of concrete examples. We don't build in reflection, we build some pause in a lecture to ask students to personalize that learning, to sort of like, how does that apply to you? So building a lot of that will really help us think quickly of examples. So there is also benefits to us. Obviously that's goes both ways as well. I think, in terms of seeing students engaged and involved in the class, it helps simplify our teaching if we connect it to something that is concrete, that is connected to the real world practice, and also helps us foster partnerships for those of us who are interested in partnership with community and industry partners. I think this is a very cool opportunity. And it encourages collaboration across departments. As the example I gave earlier, I think there's a lot of, you will see when I share with you the examples that we have collected from different departments, there's a lots of opportunities for us to work together. And we all get excited when we see students are seeing the practical value of their learning and they're embracing that. And so there's different modalities, internships, service learning, field studies, field camp, field work, capstone, global experience, and graduate research, co-ops, which we don't have yet. It's a big project, but I'm actually excited about that potential as well. As soon as we have as we gather more understanding about what's already happening, I think we can use that as a foundation to move to something bigger. Like the engineering school has, I met with a lot of coordinators last year to learn more and collect information about how they are doing it. But I think it is an exciting prospect for our school. Arts and sciences co-ops would be super, super cool for us. Apprenticeship is actually how internship started a long time ago. My father, when I was in middle school, was bored over the summer in a village. Would you like me to talk to our neighbor who's a carpenter? Would you like to go see? That's how things have started. Of course, things have changed over time. Learning from somebody else who's an expert, and shadowing them by observation as well. Problem-based learning, entrepreneurial projects, and more. So again, these examples are also really reflected in all the examples that our colleagues have shared. So take a look, for example, this is from the history of art and architecture. So they have internships and externships in key areas like museums, galleries, archives, collections, architecture as a practice, design, and as well and related firms. They have fellowships, summer fellowships. Again, internship not really need to be you're taking an internship class and you are doing 10 hours somewhere if you are taking a triple credit. And we can discuss those details in our as we move forward. And so, and then obviously the museum studies practicum, very relevant to students in this major. They also have lots of capstone project-based work with the Friends of Frick Fine Arts, Friends of Frick Fine Arts as well, independent project grants. They have global experiences as well, seeing what this looks like in another context, in another country, in another culture. I think it's also, and they also have a database as well, which would be amazing for all of us to have like a school-wide one where all these databases being accessible to all of our students. Department of English, they actually have a link. So if you just search experience learning, happy to share that link as well. Dr. Gail Rogers has shared that as well. So they have an experiential learning page that has various examples, service learning in composition, so community-based. And then you're right about that. That's actually a very formal way of reflection too. This is not just, we're not just talking about a journal. This is sort of an expanded writing. Lots of hands-on digital narrative, interactive design, tutoring, virtual reality for global practice as well. Pitt in LA and Pittsburgh London Film Program, where students work in the Derek German lab. So, and then additional ones are also hands-on creation and production. They have also a series of internships as well, also accessible through a searchable database, and on lots of cross-disciplinary opportunities with faculty. I've seen this trend also with other, and I have a summary of trends towards the end. This is also prevalent in other majors as well. And then geology as well. They have 3 majors: geology, environmental science, environmental studies. This was something also very good learning for me to know about the type of work that they are, exciting work that they are doing. So they also have lots of practical and cross-disciplinary internships, field experiences. research, undergraduate teaching, independent studies, also have global experiences and capstone courses that include a lot of practicums as well. And so, and then students present their work to the community and also have the opportunity to publish their findings, also very advanced aspect of experiential learning. We get students to publish their work as well and present it, go back to that community where they were doing their service and present it to them as well. I think that's also very important. So, and environmental studies also have internships, field camps as well, Yellowstone and external and other external experiences. Department of German also focus on global experience to broader cultural perspective to enhance student language skills in diverse settings. This also becomes the split in Munich, Heidelberg summer, and internal internships where students are sometimes participating internally in communication and social media management, alumni research, and hands-on experiences. They also have a lot of competitive internships as well, like one with the German American Chamber of Commerce, which requires proficiency in German, which is a very good motivation for first-year students. Hey, if you want this, work hard, and and I think it's something to also fostering this and providing this type of motivation. I always say to students, you're learning language, you might as well, when you graduate, list that language as advanced, because there could also be other possibilities with the government as well. And FBI, for example, have a very advanced test, really very hard to pass. So you really need this is not just about speaking the language, it's really engaging with the language to talk about politics, talk about economy. So it's very advanced as well. But I think these are creating these conversations will also motivate students to advance and take language learning formally as well, not just in the class, but also beyond the class. Because we all know twice a week sometimes is not enough to even doing that for 4 years. So you really have to create those, expanding those opportunities beyond the classroom, beyond those contact hours. And then also French and Italian, same thing. Also lots of teaching, research, and international exposure in diverse settings. They also have an amazing partnership with Brashear High School. I know that some of our students benefited from that partnership that the Department of French and Italian created, and we're very grateful for that. That also naturally also connect with, same concept, that reasoning with college and high school program. I think bringing the two together has also lots of opportunity. Just like bringing in the graduate students and graduate students in seminar also have similar benefits as well. You also have undergraduate teaching assistantship, where students help to create instructional activities and lead language tables at the global hub. This is also a very cool experience as well. And lots of cross-disciplinary research project with faculty such as Dr. Lina Insana, for example, student engagement translation project, historical research. And then you also have the study abroad in Italy as well, which is also competitive and very nice opportunity. And they provide support for some of these experiential learning opportunities through PDOG, which is paid day of giving. Economics department, also a mix of experiences, academic engagement, and career focus preparation, lots of internships as well. I think they have more than 60 spots for interns. That also include several paid internship opportunities. They also have global experiences like comparative economics of Central Europe and Eastern European economics, and also lots of fellowships. Currently, they have 6 Cohen fellows that are currently working in that capacity. And these are competitive paid research opportunities. They also, like the other departments, have an undergraduate research assistantship and also paid research assistantship that is funded through paid day of giving or grants from faculty. And also the College Fed Challenge, I think that's really interesting to create that type of competition among students. And then the career, which is really amazing, also bringing the Federal Reserve Bank 4 times to engage with the student. I think that's also huge, right? So those are, it gives you an idea that there is these are the types, that I sort of extracted looking at this data. received from different departments. That sort of also goes back to the same types of experiential learning opportunities. They are unevenly distributed, so there is opportunity for departments where you have that, we don't have that. There are departments that are just interested in launching this. So I think creating a platform for sharing, a spirit of sharing and supporting and collaborating will very well maximize our outcomes and results. These are some patterns across disciplines, in terms of how students, this is basically just gleaning from all these examples that we have seen in terms of the various opportunities that allow students to gain practical experiences through internships or global perspective, cross-cultural communication, creation, public speaking, community engagement. I think it's really important for students to know that you go somewhere, you collect data, you work with the community, you provide a service, and you go back to that community to deliver a presentation is amazing. Lots of people do their thing and then they go and then you never look back, which is, from personal experience, I had a need to go back. I collected the first data and I realized that I needed more from that community. But because we built a very good relationship with that community, we were able to go back as well. And I think same thing applies to internships as well. I think it's important to maintain and I'm going to look, I think I'm looking at some messages here. So I want to just to see to make sure that I'm not missing anything here. Thank you, Rob, for sharing that. Yes, yes. Thank you. I think Mark can explain a bit more about it. Yes, and yes, thanks, Mark. Sorry, just to pay attention. Yes, and the number is depressing, yes. So yes, Mark is the co-op. The engineering school has a program where students actually are not in session in class for a term. Could be for 3 months, could be for 6 months, could be for an entire year, where the student take 2 years in sociology and go somewhere and work with a company for a year and come back to complete their major in sociology. Very complicated, lots of logistics. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, it's just I hadn't heard that term before, but I think in the UK context that would be like secondment or something. I mean, I'm aware of that structure, but I didn't know what it was called. Thank you. Thank you for explaining that. Yeah. But it is kind of formalized actually within the department, and actually has a kind of a course assignment for this.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because you're also putting your academics on hold, which translate to other things about loans, education, and so there has to be some kind of agreement in place. Dissertation, for example, they have that FTD 1 credit where people who are writing, they're maintaining that full-time status, but they're still considered as students, even though it's just 1 credit for dissertation credit as well. So I think it will be very beneficial for us to have students even 3 months, 4 months somewhere working full-time to test. That's a big test drive, and then come back and learn more and say, I want more of this, or come back with ideas and present in the class with other students as well, and to share that experience. So lots of opportunities. And so this is again additional patterns and trends that I have seen when I was reviewing what we received from different department. But at the bottom, I highlight some opportunities for us. And Andrew, we can chat about this more in terms of a seminar, a cross-disciplinary experiential learning seminar, where we have students from sociology, from chemistry, from biology, from coming together. It doesn't have to be every week. We could be creative. You could still be that seminar that is within your discipline, because there is that benefit that is the seminar that is discipline specific, because you get to talk about certain things. But there's also things that is common to all of us, those humanities skills, that critical thinking, collaboration, communication, diversity, citizenship. That's the thing that we should also talk about as well in our education, because that is the goal ultimately, is producing good citizens and critical thinkers, and obviously lots of opportunity as well for us for cross departmental projects. And so I want to, because why internships matter, I think this is really because internships are really a vital component of experiential learning. And this is why we chose this as a starter for us. I'm sure we will have opportunity to talk about just service learning and other community-based projects to expand on all of what those entail. But this is really, but all of those can be framed as internships. I mean, going somewhere as a service in service learning or other, it's an internship, so broadly speaking. And it can be a summer one, it can be tied to credit. One credit is 40 hours, three credits is 80, three credits is 120 hours. But and then it can also, people are also talking about micro internships, short gigs, short placements in a variety of places. Also maximizes student exposure. If students really want to experiment or taste a lot of type of institute, that would be also an and then the co-op, which we just talked about. There was an article published last week, and I am going to give you just a chance to read some of those quotes from there. This came in the Bit News that they talked directly to some of the students who had internship opportunities. So there is, sometimes an internship can sometimes have something like, this is not the type of major I want. And that's good. That's early. That's really preventative. Like, maybe you shouldn't go to graduate school in marketing or in linguistics or in bio. This is not something that is of interest to you. And sometimes also we worry too much about what type of an internship. An internship, as the student said, um, um, at the very end of the quotes, is anyone is good, opens the door to other things. Network. They're in that placement, you might actually meet somebody who might help you direct your attention to something else that you really want. And what we want sometimes is invisible. I say this all the time to students. The job market is invisible. What type of, sometimes you're like skimming LinkedIn. I didn't know that this is a job. Yes, there's a lot of things that are jobs and we don't know that they are jobs. And I think that's, and it's like I don't know if this is a perfect analogy. You go to you have $20, you want to buy a pair of jeans, you go to the mall and you're looking at displays and forget about the pair of jeans because it's so nice jacket. I mean, that's the world of jobs. And we have to approach with some cultural humility. There is only so much we're ever going to know that, you can't put it like as a visual. This is that all exists. And unfortunately, sometimes that approach exists amongst our students sometimes when they teach English, and that's great. I mean, I'm very grateful to that teaching of English. That's perhaps why I'm here in the United States, because I had a wonderful Peace Corps teacher in my high school. So, but also we want to direct students' attention to other things. Yes, Drew, I think you're raising. Yeah, please. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Very well. So, thank you for all of the comments, and I certainly agree with overall the general principle. Internships, among other things, do certainly assist students with getting a feel for a field that they are maybe you're not wanting to go into. That negative is actually a positive. So I want to underline that. Since I oversee and have overseen internships for architectural studies since 2006, I've done a lot of this, and there's a form, as you know, and one aspect of what is required is that not only they're identifying an internship, but also they have a supervisor, which is a person named on that form. And when students ask me, what are we looking for? What are they looking for? What am I looking for? So the two things are an internship that will help you with thinking about your career. That does not specifically mean it's in an architecture firm. I'm not saying you said that, by the way. But I do want to stress that this is for the student, and so it could look different from what the field is, as I or my colleagues imagine it. And then the second thing that I really want to underline is that supervisor. So what are we looking for in a supervisor of an internship? And for me, when I'm sending out, this was stimulated, by the way, by an email I just sent out and a student's response, but it is consistent with what I say to students, and that is, we are looking for a supervisor with credentials that intersect with what it is you think you are going to go on to do. So this, if I'm speaking about my field and about architectural practice in the United States, this means a professional degree in the field from a university where I'm really thinking of the bottom of the letter that such a
Yes.
person is writing, where it says their name and then their credential. So this does not have to do with the university necessarily where they got the credential, by the way. It really is it a credential that's intelligible if our students apply, especially to graduate programs, but also if they apply to other jobs. So I would maybe just put a bracket or underline, maybe you feel differently about this, but I think that the credentialing or credential that the supervisor has is something that it does not have to be the credential the student wants, by the way.
Yeah.
But when we at universities, what we do is we provide people with credentials. I think that feeling strongly about the credential as
Yes.
a thing that contributes to a student's experience, um, I'm going to put that on the table, maybe as a
Yes.
question for discussion or a component of thinking about internships.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, thank you so much. Anybody has any feedback? I'm happy to contribute as well. Thank you so much, Rosa. Really, I agree with everything you said. I think it's anybody has any similar experiences or
Drew, I think I have a pretty similar experience in our department where we often have students who think that they need the credential, but so many of our professions don't require it. But then there's a couple that do ask that the credential be there. And it's oftentimes for us, they need the enrollment for like federal agencies have to have it to ensure that this happens. And so I have students who routinely I'm enrolling like over the summers for credit, and they're paying over the summers for credits because they want the internship, and so it's like perverse that way. So it's like those two sides of it, times where we want the credentials because the credentials mean something in the field, and times when we're like forced the credentials because the credentials are required to get the thing in the first
yeah.
place.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew.
I will say one thing about credentials in the professional architecture world. So this is, I have the credential, but I'm not a professional architect, right? So there is in architecture, you're not obliged, but many people belong to who are in practice belong to an organization called the American Institute of Architects. That's another credential. And here is where I do feel very strongly about some credentials. Being a member of that institute requires that you subscribe to their code of ethics. That's
Yeah.
a thing I can read, and
Yeah.
I've had my students read it too. And that actually has a strong statement about the role that professional members are supposed to play in the assistance of young people who are entering into the field. So
Absolutely.
it's a kind of two-prong reassurance to me. A, they care about the field in the kind of dispassionate way, disinterested in the sense of financial interest, but also that they have a mentorship role. So again,
Yeah.
I'm just putting that out there. That is a very specific thing.
No, absolutely.
But I
Absolutely.
think all of us can relate to how credentials help us to position, often instances where we've never met the person, or we just know
Yeah.
zero about who they are.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. It makes me think of other things related to our discipline too. On a related note, there was an opportunity for a student to engage in some translation and interpreting work in healthcare. And I said, okay, who's going to be the person? Is somebody going to be shadowing somebody? Because there has to be somebody who is somebody who speaks the same language that the student is translating. Because there is lots of liability there, right? In terms of like a student does, and again, it doesn't really count on it because you're not, this is not an intern there. You're actually hiring a professional translator, right? So there has to be somebody there who is sort of licensed to practice that type of work. And then the student, yes, can do the work, but under this supervision. And so we decided obviously not to move forward with that arrangement because that puts the intern in an employee status. And so definitely this touches on other, yeah.
If I were the cool kid using the chat, I would do those pointing things here to say what he said. So part of the backstory to my commentary, which I don't want to take up all of your time, but it has to do with some people who randomly send me emails where the clear intent is we want the kid to design a building. It's like, this is illegal. And
Yes.
even in instances where there isn't a legal frame, it is actually unethical, because the point of the internship has to do, as I think the medical instance is a perfect parallel. The point is mentorship. The point is learning, as opposed to executing work that they're fundamentally someone's looking to get a cheaper alternative. This is uncommon, by the way, but I think your medical example is a very excellent one.
Yeah, absolutely. So we require that, because otherwise it doesn't, you know, the part of the experience. Applying, but under supervision, under adequate supervision, under an expert who's needful to understand, you know, in terms of to avoid. So these are just, thank you so much. This is very interactive, and I love it to hear other people's experiences. But, you know, just some examples. We've had students in our school who learned, earned, and published, and landed the job. That's ideal. We want more of that. You know, I think it's, you know, in terms of getting undergraduates in that level, and lots of examples. Some of our students can become our partners. But this goes back to, for many years, for 12, sometimes more years, in terms of like a student, and he becomes an intern. They were retained by that company, going back to that previous example, that percentage of lots of interns are, and now they are your partner. Now they're actually meeting with you as partners, and our interns are going there, becoming interns as well. I think it's very, very interesting. But to your point also, I really want to also highlight, we talked about the supervisor there, also a faculty member from our end as well, because again, an internship without weekly or bi-weekly or monthly check-in to reflect is not going to be as effective. So I think it's important for us to also provide that opportunity. And that's also where we began to build these types of relationship, is through, if these two interns, for example, and I know other departments also have similar examples, were to do these internships independently of any seminar, I don't think we'd have developed the same relationship. So I think, and bringing, I think the value also of interns coming together in a seminar once a week, or however frequency your department decides on, it has values in terms of sharing experiences, because students then present on their work, their learning points, the challenges they are facing. Other interns hear this. I have the same challenge. I liked how you approached it. So there's a lots of opportunity for learning. Some aspect, as I said, in terms of exploring cross-departmental collaboration or cross-disciplinary collaboration. Some of it also have to keep in mind they are in this discipline specific. Also, interns themselves. I have a group of interns. Some of them are graduating in April. They have different plans from students who are graduating in 2027. But that's where something called like an action plan in a syllabus, thank you, comes in handy for the intern. So this way it's particularized and inclusive, that you're graduating 27. You're aiming for a full-time summer internship opportunity. You're graduating in April 2025. You are in the job market. And let's figure out what that means, right? What does that entail? And so you have different goals also. I think having students create their own action plan there is also lots of learning behind that as well. We have about 10 minutes left in our meeting. I wasn't sure if anybody has questions or things to share, or experiences. These are the key partners in any type of experience learning, but primarily in internship. Obviously, students, incoming or current interns, alum. I think also working to create that relationship, and we're working on that. I think we're going to be making lots of progress on that topic. I think it's important for the department also think about having their page of alums to showcase what the people who graduated from your department, even in the past 5 years, past 4 years, are doing. But also something that should be encouraged now, like tell our students, please, I'm interested in knowing where you are. So touch base, I think, creating, because sometimes it's very hard. And one thing that we do in our internship seminar, I know lots of other seminars do that as well, is requiring students to create a LinkedIn profile. Obviously, requiring between quotes, because some students, I would like to respect that some students do not want to be present in social media, and I'm okay with that. So it's not, they're not going to fail the class if they don't join LinkedIn, but also really helps us keep, sort of know where they are and not just creating LinkedIn profile, but also working on them on how to use it and how to engage with it and the features it comes with. That, for example, that gazing feature, when you're LinkedIn and you get a notification that somebody looked at your profile. I think it's like it has a sociolinguistic value. It's like going on the hallway and you see Andrew, you mutually gaze and then you say hello. And it might also be like a follow-up message. I looked at my profile, I looked at yours. I am really excited about the type of work that you are doing. And I would like to learn more about that, and that might lead to a connection. Yes, let's connect via phone or via Zoom. And also just last week worked with our interns to generate their posts. Many of them have exciting internship opportunities. Post that on LinkedIn. I'm excited to share that I'm graduating in April and I am currently working as an intern with this company, and put an image to that and things like that. So yeah. So we have an upcoming meeting in April. Please save the date, April 4th, 2025. This year we want this meeting to be primarily focused on experiential learning opportunities, where we work with faculty and academic advisors from other departments to come and showcase and present. This will be yet another opportunity for us to, but before that, there will also be lots of opportunities for us to meet and to gather information from other departments and see how we can help, expand any department's experiential learning programming. And so I'll stop here and I'll take some questions and or discuss or hear if other people have other things to add to this conversation.
If I can, I might jump in with a couple of this has been great. Thank you. Terrific to sort of hear that reckoning with what different people are doing and the commonalities. And, there's been informal discussions over the years between some of us about things that we're doing together and how we can learn from each other, but it'll be great to do that in a more organized way. I just wanted to shout out a couple of kind of modest challenges that I've had in the last couple of years of managing both our partnerships and our placements with museums, galleries, archives locally for museum studies and art history students. One is that the word internship has in some quarters become increasingly toxic. And sometimes that means that said institutions just don't want them. And sometimes that means that they're just uncomfortable with the word and they're thinking about different ways to understand them internally. And maybe the little contribution I want to make here is that I think it's very important in this case that the university pays attention to those shifts in the sector, in the world, the differences that different parts of industry might have towards these terms, and does not seek to impose those words out there on the world for things that they might use different language for. For instance, there is at least one large museum across the street that has come for various reasons to prefer the word externship. It's not entirely clear to me what that means or how it is very different from what we used to do, but it's very important to them. And, in the interests of productive collaborations, I am on board with their desire to use this word. So that was one thing I wanted to say. And then another, which is sort of more, in some ways, a little more challenging to navigate, is the fact that for those of us who collaborate with the sector, with business at large, that work necessarily continues beyond the limits of the academic calendar. And I think that might be something that if this group is coming together, if there's opportunities to bring us together to have further conversations, thinking about how we do that, how that's legible, what forms it can be legible that are permissible, etc. I think in the coming couple of years, that's going to become important to work out. Because for students to have these opportunities, that work cannot begin especially for the fall semester, on the whatever of August. So yeah, that's another kind of little challenge I've been navigating.
Yeah, yeah. I'm happy to comment, but Andrew, if you want to go first, you can as well. It's up to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll back up what Alex said on that. I think we could talk to the registrar about policies about like can there be more leniency in self-enrollment and internships, or at least, allowing advisors to be able to issue internship enrollments after the job ad period, because it can be, there's like no standard when is it too late to add one, but the dean's office has oversight there. The main thing I wanted to add to the conversation is, and that it's been kind of touched on, but I just really want to like put an exclamation point on it, is like there's an equity issue based on class buried into this whole conversation. Like the chief driver of who amongst my students can do experiential learning and who can't when it's not baked into the class is, are they working or not to pay their way through school? And so if they're working, I have some of my very best students who like they have two other jobs. There's no space to do these things too. And so they scrabble for smaller opportunities. They put together what they can, but they're really cognizant of it in a way that other students just kind of breeze in internships and just are like, yeah, this is what we do. This is the nature of it. And so I know that like the saying, moving to a fully funded model is impossible, but paying attention to any ways that we could reverse trends or bake them into classes, find balance, for students. I think that should occupy a fair chunk of our thinking when we're building these to the best of our abilities.
Absolutely, and it's good, Andrew. When building, it's good to keep equity in mind as we build, not build and then, oops, might have left out some. So I agree with you with an inclusive approach to that. We have, even like internship that are paid versus unpaid. I mean, we've put together work with the scholarship because we recognize that students sometimes find, make a difficult choice between working at Starbucks and pursuing an internship that is not paid. So I think it's, and so I am with you. I think Alex, you also raised good points in terms of being flexible, community engagement, reciprocity is important as part of that community engagement, and also being culturally responsive in terms of looking how terminology, words are important, words matter. Externship means a lot to that community. How can we let us understand what that means from their perspective? I am all for that conversation in terms of seeing, because that's how we build a relationship. That is the premise of community engagement. That's how we sustain those relationships, is seeing the other perspective. Some cultural humility about it is very important, and also requires some flexibility from our end. I think internships should not be tied to fall term, spring term. If an opportunity comes to us, we want to work together to make it happen for the student. If a student is minding their own business and they are like halfway through the spring term, March, something happens, we're not going to say to the community industry partner, yes, but our term started in January. I have never had those, even without a structure that exists, I have always found a way to make it work. And we will make it work. And we consult with your colleagues and the dean's office, of course. And, we can't fix everything without knowing that these things exist. So there are situations we brought up to the dean's office and we were able to work things through. And so, but you make good points in terms of we have to work together. That is the premise of community engagement, is working with partners and understanding their needs and their perspectives. And Mark, please. Yeah.
Yeah, this has been really useful, actually, I've got to say, because, I mean, first of all, I mean, I'm from a completely different academic system. I had no understanding of this whatsoever, the internships. And there, as you know, Soudi, there was somebody responsible in sociology department for doing this and for allocating the internships. And then he just got early retirement because of COVID. And, it left us with nothing, right? But at the same time, we have, a lot of people doing community engaged research with like nonprofit partners and so on. So there's huge demand among students, and also, the ability to actually meet that demand in some ways, and we just really have to try and plug the one thing into the other. But it's kind of like from scratch again, right? That's what it feels like, which is kind of tough. So I'm going to need your help on this, and Hillary as well, very much.
And as we as we build, Mark, thank you for mentioning that. Also, as we build, there is a lot of information. I've been managing the linguistic internship since 2013, right? And we want to make sure that that information is available to everyone. Let's say something like that happens, we actually want to build not just a department level platform, but actually a school-wide database that we can all benefit. Most of our students, so I have students who are major in sociology, minor in linguistics, and you probably have the same thing as well. And they might also have interest in neuroscience or other things. So I think it's important for us to find a way to share the resources. And I'm happy to sit one-on-one, Mark, in our kitchen next door, right?
Yes.
Mark and I
With some
also
tea. With some tea.
drink some tea. That's the idea. That's the idea, and then and steep and brew together possibilities. Absolutely, yeah.
Right, but I mean, there's also a kind of other issue which I think Andrew raised, which I'm very I don't know how to articulate this apart from, I don't think it's just about equity. I think also it's about, I mean, because that's a very important issue. But I think there's another issue which is related to equity, which is actually about the massive engines of competitiveness amongst students now to be on the market and out there and visible and active and so on. And they're already under a huge amount of demands as it is. And I think, I certainly see this in terms of, their presence in class, like struggling, and some students are clearly, sleepless, struggling. They're not getting enough sunlight, they're not getting enough sleep, as it is. Some students absolutely thrive with actually having too many things to do. And that was actually in one of the comments on one of your slides, actually, that was very interesting that, that they're super busy, but actually that helps them with their time management as well. But I wonder to what extent actually with kind of internships and that we're actually kind of giving more students more fuel to be more competitive and therefore raise things about anxiety personally, and then also underachievement actually in the class relatively as well. I mean, I think this is a kind of larger contextual concern that I'm raising here, where I don't think you're going to be part of the work of in terms of actually doing the positive aspects of this, but this is a kind of this is a concern that I think I don't know how you can possibly face up to this, but I think it's there anyway. Right?
Yeah, well, I mean, those differentials have always existed in terms of how students come to the classroom with diverse conditions, right? Some had a good night's sleep, some did not. Some are taking 18 credits and maybe got permission to take even more. Some are barely keeping up even with 12 and 14. I think those things are not just, they apply to all, broader aspects of education and human performance in general too. Just like, it's always asymmetric. It's very hard to think of any human encounter that's symmetric, right? I think we know that from experience as well. I think what we bring in and our expectations and our values and our socioeconomics and where we live and all of that stuff is, I think it's very important to keep in mind. I mean, just for me, one simple thing I'm upfront with students embarking on a journey of experiential learning. It's not a journey you want to do when you're taking 18 credits. I think it's important because it's a journey you want to capitalize. This is not, you are an intern, and so that's social frame too. I think it brings there's some responsibility, some accountability, some expectations from the partner that you're going to be engaged in these types of experiences. Will you have time to take a moment to network and reflect and build on that experience to make big things out of it? I think it's important to catching them at the right time and providing support. I think the seminar is also really important to check in, because I think, again, having internships independently of us, they are good, students are on their own, but also for that seminar, that campus thing, guidance and checking in, how are things going, and workplace, just like, I mean, everybody wants to talk about, challenges and problem solving and solutions and networking together. So I think those are definitely important considerations to keep in mind. We are human beings, and we perform under constraints all the time. Nobody, there is no such a thing as an ideal situation, but it's also part of teaching them in life, because life is that full of challenges. And we talk about careers, but more importantly, in experiential learning, I think encounter, we should also address things like that. We talk about how to negotiate offers. We talk about remote or in person. I think students love that conversation. And we talk, because they're going to be making those decisions. We talk about staying in the same city or moving to another one. We talk about values. I tell them, for example, I am happy my job does not require me to travel, because I mean, the opportunity of having breakfast with my children and dinner is amazing. If I can miss it once or twice here and there, but I am not built for having a job. And I think it's really important to sort of address these things because they're going to think about them someday. Just as I embraced my new role, as in terms of that initial reflection they said at the beginning, in terms they're going to be looking for frames of reference, and they will go back to these conversations. So, but
if I can just super quickly add, I know we got to finish, but Mark, I think like the way you framed that is really, it's nice to see you, typically humane of you, and absolutely chimes with my experience, because what I have, what I have built in the like 9 years of doing internships in our program is really a kind of placement model. And partly that is, for pragmatic reasons about diminishing risk between poor student and partner fit. And like for me, selfishly, I want to preserve those relationships because I need those relationships for future students. But actually what you're also pointing out is that in making sure that fit is good, I'm also protecting students who aren't ready, students who might think they're ready but aren't, students who are overcommitted and this is not the right moment for it. And sometimes students are not in a position to know that about themselves, and they actually really need us to help them see that. So yeah, thank you for I'm always have on my mind the risk to partner relationships of internships gone bad, and it has happened over the years. But as you're framing it, it's also, I think, it's about protecting students kind of from themselves in some ways, and not really recognizing what they're reckoning with as they start to think of themselves as professionals.
That's really useful. Thank you, actually, Alex, because in many ways, this is like an art to human people management in this respect. So thank you.
Occasionally, and this is kind of weird to say, but occasionally I feel like I run a dating service, and that's the encounter bit of like finding fit.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And I think, and there is value. We're also realizing the value of what we talked about at the beginning of us sort of creating opportunities for us as a community of practice involved or desiring to be involved in experiential learning, for us to gather and engage in exchanging, having these types of conversations so we can learn from each other as well and be ready to support our students. Yeah.
Thanks, Soudi.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Nice to see you again. And I hope we get to catch up soon.
We will. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I have to go as well, Soudi. So thanks very much for this. I really appreciate this. We will talk soon, definitely.
Thank you for being here as well. Thank you for joining the conversation. Thanks. And Roberta, thank you as well. And
Hey,
hey,
let me ask you something. Was
yes,
this supposed to start at 1? Did I join late?
no, noon. I apologize for the miss.
Oh, I was like, what's going on? Because I was reviewing the invitation,
Yeah.
and hold on, my dog is complaining. Just I was reviewing the invitation. It says 1. And then I was like, I missed all that.
No, I'm sorry, but it is recorded. The conversation was recorded today, and so the dean's office will share it with the faculty at some point.
Okay, do you know when we're gonna have access to that?
I think after, I don't know if after the series end, but I can also raise that, I can check in terms of when they had planned to share it with everyone.
Yeah, I really wanted to participate. I'm coordinating the internship program for urban studies.
Wonderful.
And I couldn't follow where you guys were at the end of the meeting when I joined, so unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy
Well,
to connect with you and exchange information and go over things. I'm actually planning, we're going to be sending out a flyer soon because I'll be holding some weekly meetings with faculty, academic advisors, and some industry partners as well as we continue to build our conversation around this topic.
Okay, well, please fill me in.
Absolutely.
Write me in your mailing list, and hopefully we can connect further.
Absolutely,
soon.
absolutely. I'm going to put my email for you just so you have it as well here. I think I'm using a double screen here, so I put.
So it means, I don't know if you know that, so all the workshops will be at noon?
Yes, I believe all the series are at noon. So far, the first one was at noon, and I think the upcoming ones will be as well. Yeah, and yeah.
All right, where did I get the one, I don't know, okay. We just get bombarded and overwhelmed with everything going on and happening at
Understandable.
once, so.
Understandable.
But that one was, I'm really sorry about missing.
No worries. Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much again. Thank you.
All right,
And
thank you,
we'll
Soudi.
connect. Yeah, thank you. Thank you
Have a great
for being.
weekend.
You as well. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.